You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynne Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday the 30th of July 2014. Commonwealth Games Scottie dogs disrespectful to Muslims. Rabbi of Gateshead, England Yeshiva, beaten by 4 teens in anti-Semitic attack. Bradford should twin with Gaza, says George Galloway. British Prime Minister congratulates Muslims on Eid al-Fitr. Danish PM refuses to sign Nordic letter on Gaza. Norway, leaders reach out in local mosques. Jihadists book on sale in French supermarkets. The Reverend West talks about Gaza. And former Shin Bet chief warns if European countries fail to protect their Jews, the state of Israel will. And family of Jesuit kidnapped in Syria appeal for news. Obama's Eid message praises contributions of Muslim Americans to building the very fabric of our nation. Thought for the day, no man is an island, myth or fact. And finally, the biker and hell. UK news. Commonwealth Games Scottie dogs disrespectful to Muslims. Use of Scottish Terrier dogs during Commonwealth Games opening ceremony shameful and offensive, Malaysian politicians claim. Malaysian politicians and religious leaders have attacked the use of Scottie dogs during the Commonwealth Games opening ceremony, claiming it was disrespectful to Muslims. Around 40 Scottie dogs were used in the opening ceremony in Glasgow last Wednesday to lead teams around Celtic Park. The dogs, which all wore tartan dog coats with the name of each team on them, were widely praised on social media, with many people stating they thought they'd stolen the show. Hamish, who led out the Scotland team, received one of the biggest cheers of the night. Judy Murray tweeted after the ceremony, "Scottie dogs in tartan coats at CG opening ceremony. Barkingly brilliant." However, not everyone was impressed. Political and religious leaders in Malaysia have claimed the use of dogs connected to Muslim countries was disrespectful. Many Muslims refuse to have direct contact with dogs, which are considered by some to be unclean in Islamic culture. Some overseas Muslim groups have reportedly previously called for a jihad on dogs. Possibly making matters worse was the fact that Jock, who was supposed to lead out the Malaysian team, sat down and refused to move as soon as his coat was put on, meaning he had to be carried by the team representative. Mohammed Sabu, the deputy president of the opposition Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party, said, "Malaysia and all Islamic countries deserve an apology from the organiser. This is just so disrespectful to Malaysia and Muslims, especially as it happened during Ramadan. Muslims are not allowed to touch dogs, so the organisers should have been more aware and sensitive on this issue. It's hoped this incident can teach other Western countries to be more respectful in the future." World at 8. Well, let's hope the Malaysians can keep their planes in the air in the future. And let's hope this incident teaches the West to ignore Islam in future, and especially in our own country. They have no rights as far as I'm concerned, especially not human rights. Rabbi of Gateshead, England Yeshiva, beaten by 4 teens in anti-Semitic attack. A rabbi was hospitalised after being beaten by 4 teens in an unprovoked anti-Semitic attack, police in the United Kingdom said. Gateshead police said they'd charged 4 teenagers in connection with the assault on the local rabbi. The 40-year-old victim was attacked while leaving a yeshiva in the centre of the largest Orthodox Jewish community in Bensham. 19-year-old Khazar Malik and 18-year-old Balawal Sultan, both of Newcastle, and a 16 and 17-year-old man were charged with a racially aggravated assault. They were brought before the South Tyneside Magistrates Court for bail hearings. World at 8. Interestingly, none of the British media had named the youths, who appear to be Islamic. Bradford should twin with Gaza, says George Galloway. Respect MP George Galloway has called on Bradford Council to twin with Gaza as a show of solidarity during the conflict with Israel. The Bradford West MP also appealed to those attending a city centre rally to boycott Israeli products as he spoke in defence of the Palestinians caught up in the Gaza conflict. In front of hundreds of people at Saturday's event in Centenary Square, Mr Galloway said he wanted councillors from all parties, along with fellow Bradford MPs David Ward and Jerry Sutcliffe, to twin Gaza with Bradford now and forevermore. World Date thought it was already. British Prime Minister congratulates Muslim on Eid al-Fitr. British Prime Minister David Cameron has recorded a video message for Eid al-Fitr to wish Muslims in the United Kingdom and around the world Eid Mubarak. I want to send my best wishes to Muslims across the country and around the world celebrating Eid. This Ramadan, British Muslims have shown what Islam is all about. We have seen an inspiring amount of charity, with Muslims across the country giving what they can and giving up their own time for those less fortunate, Cameron said. We have seen a commitment to contemplation, and Muslims have been putting themselves second as they pray, abstain and fast during the holy month. World Date, oh God, pass the sick bucket. Muslims have done just what they've done for hundreds of years. Next will come the mass public butchering of animals. Everywhere there are Muslims. Oh joy. European news. Danish PM refuses to sign Nordic letter on Gaza. Denmark's Prime Minister Helle Thorning-Schmidt has declined to sign a joint statement with her Nordic fellows that strongly criticises Israel's sections in Gaza, local media reported Tuesday. The social democratic leaders of Sweden, Norway, Iceland and Finland all attached their names to a letter which condemns Israel's use of disproportionate violence and calls on Israel to end its blockade of Gaza and occupation of the West Bank. The message also calls on Israel to stop its settlement policies. Norway, leaders reach out in local mosques. Norwegian leaders from both ends of the political spectrum have been visiting local mosques and reaching out to the country's Muslims in the wake of last week's terror threat against that country. The politicians are urging mutual respect and tolerance and think religious leaders also must work to head off extremism. I hope we one day live in a city and a country where a young man who goes to the mosque on Friday is no more suspect than a young woman who goes to church on Sunday. Stian Berger Rosland, head of Oslo's city government from the Conservative Party, said when he attended prayers himself on Friday and spoke inside the World Islamic Mission's mosque in Oslo. World Date. It would appear the Norwegians are all for joining them. After all, it was the Norwegians who gave us Quisling. Jihadist book on sale in French supermarkets. Thousands of people complain at works that reportedly call on Muslims to open bomb factories and advertise methods to kill sodomists. Books preaching violent jihad and urging Muslims to set up arms factories are reportedly on sale openly in French supermarkets and bookshops, sparking thousands of complaints and fresh debate over the limits of free speech. Publishers have defended the works, claiming only a few pages are contentious, while authorities say it will be difficult to ban them. They can be found on the shelves of supermarkets including Carrefour, one of the world's biggest retail chains, and Fnac, France's largest retailers of books, music, DVDs and electronic goods. Some of the works are also available from the website on the online retailer Amazon. According to Le Figaro newspaper, 2 petitions demanding they be withdrawn from sale, signed by more than 18,000 people, have been ignored by Carrefour. It's not up to the distributor to take a view on the shocking nature of publications, a representative of the group's press department said, adding the books have never been banned. World Date. Well, a World Wide Web that allows all sorts of really sick and disgusting sites will obviously not monitor anything however harmful. Just switch off and don't do business through Amazon. Walk to a shop. I now hand you over to the Reverend West, who gives us a talk today about Gaza.
The Gaza Fighting and the Just War Theory of Thomas Aquinas. Most of us have been watching the news on telly every night about the fighting in Gaza, and the retaliation carried out by the Israeli Defence Force against the Hamas-launched rockets from within high population areas of Gaza, deliberately targeting Israeli civilians. However, the media seems to be blaming the State of Israel for the collateral damage and loss of life and limb being thereby inflicted upon the Palestinian civilians. Little account seems to be taken of the deliberate policy of Hamas in positioning their offensive rockets within the dwelling areas of such civilian populations. The media seem to be saying that the State of Israel should not be protecting itself and its citizens. This is asymmetrical reporting, and it is not untypical of the media, as we all in the British National Party know. If Israel is not supposed to defend itself, then what is it supposed to do? If it is expected to just take what Hamas throws against its own civilians, then how will this broker an eventual peace? Hamas should give up the rocket campaign against Israeli civilians and settlements within Israel, as well as the tunnel attacks from the Gaza Strip into sovereign Israeli territory. I, for one, believe that every nation has the right to self-determination and expression, and the right to hold, to uphold, and to defend its sovereign territory. It does not appear to me, therefore, however much we must and should regret the loss of Palestinian civilian life, that Israel is doing anything either wrong or disproportionate in its own self-defence. The great medieval Christian theologian Thomas Aquinas, who lived from 1225 to 1274, surely got it right when he taught the doctrine of the just war. Thomas's philosophy, known as Thomism, is the dominant brand of theological and political philosophy within the Roman Catholic churches. That is, within those churches which are in communion with and under the authority of the Roman Pope, that is, the Bishop of Rome, the Supreme Pontiff, and the Patriarch of the West. Thomas suggested that for a war to be just, it must have a righteous cause, and that the means used for its promotion must be proportionate to its end. Civilians should not be deliberately targeted, which meets the case here, at least on the side of Israel. For Israel is not deliberately targeting civilians, but Hamas is. That, it seems to me, is the real moral difference between the two sides. I think that all Christian churches, of whatever denomination of Christendom, can agree on that. We need to move on to a situation where all of Israel's neighbours, including Hamas, recognise Israel's right to exist within the boundaries established in her war of survival and independence way back in 1948 and 1949. Egypt has done so. There is no reason, therefore, why any other Arab and Mohammedan state cannot do the same. If we fail to do that, then the struggle will only continue until that objective is finally achieved. Let us hope, for the sake of all civilians involved in this 60-year-old war, whether Arab or Jewish, that everyone concerned will now accept that fact. Let us all hope and pray that Hamas will, in the meantime, give up the deliberate targeting of Israeli civilians, and that it will also give up the deliberate placing of its own offensive weapons within high population areas of its own people, the Palestinians. The Holy Land has seen too much fighting since before the days of the Crusades. It is high time that it was now ended.
Thank you, Reverend, and we look forward to hearing more from you. On Friday we will be featuring an interview with the new acting chairman, Adam Walker. World News. Former Shin Bet chief warns if European countries fail to protect their Jews, the State of Israel will. In a blunt warning to a visiting group of European diplomats over a looming jihadi threat, a former deputy Shin Bet chief on Monday said, "If you do not stand by our side, the day when Islamic terror will reach your homes, your beds and your kindergartens will come soon." World at 8. True, as was said during the times of the Third Reich. Next, they will come for you. Family of Jesuit kidnapped in Syria appeal for news. The family of kidnapped Italian Jesuit priest Paolo dell'Oglio on Monday called on his abductors to reveal his fate 1 year after he went missing in Syria. "We want to hug him again, but we are also ready to mourn him," his relatives said in an appeal which they sent to ANSA. A long-time promoter of interfaith dialogue in Syria, where he had lived for 30 years, dell'Oglio was expelled by Damascus authorities in 2012. He returned a year later to help mediate a hostage release and a truce between warring factions in northern Syria, according to activists who helped him cross the Turkish border at the time. Dell'Oglio was last heard from in July 27, 2013, emailed to his family from the northeastern Syrian city of Raqqa. He was kidnapped sometime between then and July 29th, on his way to an undisclosed location along the Euphrates River. Since then, conflicting and unconfirmed reports from disparate sources have claimed he has been killed, or alternatively that he is being held by jihadists as he is in good health. In the latest such report, well-informed sources recently told ANSA that dell'Oglio is allegedly being detained in the province of Raqqa. World at 8. I hope he is still alive, but I fear he could be a football. Obama's Eid message praises contributions of Muslim Americans to building the very fabric of our nation. Statement by the President of the occasion of Eid el-Fitr, the White House Office of the Press Secretary, July 27, 2014. As Muslims throughout the United States and around the world celebrate Eid el-Fitr, Michelle and I extend our warmest wishes to them and their families. This last month has been a time of fasting, reflection, spiritual renewal and service to the less fortunate. While Eid remarks the completion of Ramadan, it also celebrates the common values that unite us in our humanity and reinforces the obligations that people of all faiths have to each other, especially those impacted by poverty, conflict and disease. In the United States, Eid also reminds us of the very many achievements and contributions of Muslim Americans to building the very fabric of our nation and strengthening the core of our democracy. That's why we stand with people of all faiths here at home and around the world to protect and advance their rights to prosper, and we welcome their commitment to giving back to their communities. On behalf of the administration, we wish Muslims in the United States and around the world a blessed and joyous celebration. Eid Mubarak. World at 8. Oh, Christ on his cross would cry. What is wrong with this man? This Islamic puppet and coward. Poor old America. Thought for the day. No man is an island, myth or fact. The brotherhood of man and no man is an island diversity ethos is here with a bang, and the sad thing is that whilst the GPP, the Great British Public or blurbs, are busy hating everyone in the media tells them to hate, this myth is still going strong on the reverse side of the propaganda coin. We have the pro-EU debate telling us that we couldn't survive a winter without belonging to the EU and paying through the nose for it, when the true side of it is that firstly as a nation we have been stripped of being able to survive without foreign crap being bussed in on a daily basis, which has turned the blurbs into self-satisfied greedy morons who do not think until the next meal, when the actual fact is we will go bloody cold before we go hungry if we stick to the EU sanctions on Russia, who is currently the bad boy of Europe, and unfairly so. I am anti-communist. In fact, I cannot stand the self-satisfied ignorant bunch of peasants that they are, vis-a-vis Merkel. But Putin is not a bad man. He is a leader, and leaders have to lead. And that's why Cameron is not a leader, because he's too busy playing to the pit and the gallery, or rather fiddling, while the UK goes to Sharia. The brotherhood of man is a myth. There is no such animal, let alone in nationalistic circles. The whole point of being a nationalist for one's country is that you care only for that country and its indigenous peoples, not the rest of the sodding world and theirs. That is being an idiot, and a self-proclaimed idiot at that. OK, there's pity and sympathy for certain countries in certain situations, but it should not open the floodgates of a particularly small island like the UK to the massive influx of migrants and all the baggage they carry and will carry in our future. The whole point of nationalism is just that, an island race trying to keep within reason still an island race. I celebrate the differences of races, not the hatred of other races. It's just that I don't see the necessity of bringing in millions of foreigners to outbreed an already underbreeding population. It simply doesn't make sense, especially not in the light of sacrificing our land, culture and ability to provide for ourselves and educate our grandchildren in our history, not dress them up in Arabian Nights costumes and throw them into the nearest mosque. Could it be that the wave of anti-Jewish hatred coming out of France led by the Muslims will spread over here? No one hates the Jews more than the Muslims, and no one denies it more than the Europeans, who seem quite happy to nurse these vipers to their bosoms. So what has happened to good old-fashioned nationalism? Are we beaten by the establishment into rethinking our ethos? I hope not, because a Brit doesn't really care what's happening as long as he can view his footy from the comfort of his home with a six-pack. Of course, the average Brit doesn't have the brains to realise that if Islam took over England, the entire structure and society of this country would change radically. It isn't a matter of living alongside Islam. No non-Muslim in any country has successfully lived alongside Islam since the year that Muhammad got off his camel and decided that inventing a new religion was the way to go. And if anyone is stupid enough to ignore that, then perhaps we deserve this fate. If we become an Islamic state, it will not be the fault of the nationalists. It'll be the fault of the common people, the media and the government. The common people because they don't value themselves or their own, the media because it's become a tool of the plan, and the government because it's too frightened to be strong. I'm discounting the monarchy because they are only good at either keeping out other morons or for tourism. The fact that most of the bloody tourists stay on is clearly not of account. The followers of Islam will always find a reason to rebel, commit atrocities, continue with a culture which is out of the ark, and convert, kill and make money out of doing both. They will also continue to blame the West, the East, the US, the UK or Europe. They will never run out of reasons to re-establish Mecca in foreign lands and continue to breed and get paid for doing so, until we, that is Europeans, put our poor little feet down firmly. This is not being a nationalist, racist, fascist or neo-Nazi. It's being open to the idea that things can change, and they can change for the worst in the blink of an eye. In fact, before Damien has picked up his voddy and turned on the telly. I do not advocate hating Muslims. In fact, I don't advocate hating anyone. But I do advocate hating whomever wants to take over this country, either by stealth or deceit. You have to admit, for a peaceful religion from a peace-loving people, trouble, death, rape and murder and mayhem follow very closely on the heels of its followers, and this is what could be our undoing: ignorance and closed minds. People cannot act if they do not have the information or the knowledge to do so, and the establishment have made sure that the media tells us what we need to know, and that is all. All national news is biased, it is anti-Jewish, anti-Russian, anti-Eastern Europeans, anti-US, pro-Muslim and pro-peasant celebs and pro-sports. And we have to face the fact that our sports are not good, and now the footy team is mainly ethnic and paid a small fortune not to kick a ball around. What does it matter to them if they lose? Frankly, the Paralympics makes them look like sloppy seconds anyway. I'm about to read a letter from a doctor in Israel, and I think you'll find it interesting. It's by Dr. Arya Eldad, an MD at the Hadassah Hospital in Israel. I was instrumental in establishing the Israeli National Skin Bank, which is the largest in the world. The National Skin Bank stores skin for everyday needs, as well as for wartime or mass casualty situations. The Skin Bank is hosted at the Hadassah Ein Kerem University Hospital in Jerusalem, where I was the chairman of plastic surgery. This is how I was asked to supply skin for an Arab woman from Gaza who was hospitalised in Soroka Hospital in Beersheba after her family burned her. Usually such atrocities happen among Arab families when the women are suspected of having an affair. We supplied all the needed homografts for her treatment. She was successfully treated by my friend and colleague Professor Leo Rosenberg and discharged to return to Gaza. She was invited for regular follow-up visits to the outpatient clinic in Beersheba. One day she was caught at a border crossing wearing a suicide belt. She meant to explode herself in the outpatient clinic of the hospital where they saved her life. It seems that her family promised her that if she did that, they would forgive her. This is only one example of the war between Jews and Muslims in the land of Israel. It is not a territorial conflict. This is a civilization conflict, or rather a war between civilization and barbarism. Bibi Netanyahu gets it, Obama does not. I have never written before asking anyone to please forward on onwards so that as many as possible can understand radical Islam and what awaits the world if it is not stopped. Sincerely, Dr. Arya Eldad. So you see, all the pictures shown and the renting of clothes are for the most part staged, managed, as indeed most of our Muslims do over here. Apparently there were 40,000 of the sods in Birmingham celebrating the end of Ramadan. Now, 50 years ago it would not have been allowed. A mass gathering of anyone, let alone Muslims, wall to wall. Footballers and nationalists are never allowed to gather but are kettled. Why not this bunch? It was a show of strength, and they will get stronger the weaker our establishment and blurbs get. Make no mistake, the one and only thing Muslims have in any country they colonise is unity, and it is that unity that we do not have in the English culture, because we are divided by tribes and not united by a religion anymore, even by the dislike of an alien religion. To the people that think I'm truly awful, a message. You won't find me moaning when Sharia law is implemented throughout the UK. You won't find me calling for an inquiry or a public investigation as to how, why or was this allowed to happen. Why? Because, matey, I will convert. I am a complete coward and to me survival is half the battle. Awful I may be, stupid I ain't. The BNP have already done their job, I feel, in warning the great British public about what will happen, and if they don't care enough to listen or hate us too much to open their minds, tough. My only hope is that one day, before it is too late, either our army or people manage to achieve the impossible and stop the tide of Islam before it's too late or it's too bloody. I live in hope. And finally, the biker and hell. One day a biker dies and finds himself in hell. As he's wallowing in despair, he has his first meeting with the devil. Satan, why so glum? Biker, what do you think, I'm in hell? Satan, hell's not so bad. We actually have a lot of fun down here. Are you a drinking man? Biker, sure, I love to drink. Satan, well you're gonna love Mondays then. On Mondays that's all we do is drink. Bombay Sapphire, tequila, Guinness, red wine, single malt scotch. We drink till we throw up and then we drink some more. And you don't have to worry about getting a hangover because you're dead anyway. Biker, gee that sounds great. Satan, you a smoker? Biker, you better believe it. Satan, alright, you're gonna love Tuesdays. We get the finest cigars from all over the world and smoke your lungs out. If you get cancer, no biggie, you're already dead, remember? Biker, wow, that's awesome. Satan, I bet you like to gamble. Biker, why yes, as a matter of fact I do. Satan, good, because Wednesdays you can gamble all you want. Craps, blackjack, roulette, poker, slots, whatever. If you go bankrupt it doesn't matter, you're dead anyway. Biker, cool. Satan, what about drugs? Biker, are you kidding? Love drugs, you don't mean... Satan, that's right. Thursday is drug day. Help yourself to a great big bowl of crack or smack. Smoke a doobie the size of a submarine. You can do all the drugs you want. You're so dead, who cares? You're dead, so who cares? Biker, wow, I never realised hell was such a cool place. Satan, you gay? Biker, no. Satan. Ooh. Ooh. Fridays are gonna be tough. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne Mozar and I wish you all a very good night.